happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
Happy Labor Day weekend. I'm Ann Northrup.
Things aren't so happy in Kentucky, where the defiant clerk, Kim Davis, who won't sign off on same-sex marriage licenses, or any at the moment, says it is a matter of heaven or hell.
For her. We have some pretty dramatic video connected with that to show. Things are getting heated up there. Meanwhile, in New York, the raid on Rentboy.com is now attracting protests across the country as mainstream LGBT and civil liberties groups call for an end to the criminalization of sex work.
You may have read about the Pope once again fainting left and the media swoons, but we'll tell you why nothing has changed.
Meanwhile, a Catholic high school in Oregon is the first to adopt a non-discrimination policy for students and staff who are LGBT.
Renowned author Oliver Sacks has died at the age of 82, less than a year after he publicly came out.
82 came out a year ago.
Within the year.
Well, it's a kind of tragic story. And we're going to show you the trailer for a new movie opening in New York this week, LA next week, and around the country called A Sinner in Mecca. It's about a gay Muslim who made the traditional pilgrimage to Mecca and what happened to him on that.
Right.
But some people are making a pilgrimage to Kentucky, I guess.
Well, again, same-sex marriage has been legal there for a while now in Kentucky.
At least 3 months.
Yes, well.
July, August, September.
Okay. Well,
August, 2.5 months.
So there's a clerk there, Kim Davis. You've seen her on all the national news. She's being defended by Alliance Defending Freedom, which is the big right-wing group that
because she does not want to issue same-sex marriage licenses to same-sex couples, and so she stopped issuing marriage licenses to everybody so she wouldn't be accused of discrimination.
She calls it a heaven or hell decision. Now, she's born again. She has not always been that religious. She's on her 4th marriage.
2 to the same guy.
Well, all right.
Her kids, while she was married to the first one.
It's like Liz and Dick.
Were fathered by the third one, but adopted by the second one.
So she's losing her cases. She lost at the trial level a very, very important decision written by federal judge Jim Bunning, who said, hey, we're a nation of laws, and you swore to uphold the Constitution, and we can't let public officials who are responsible for enforcing the laws go around deciding what they're going to enforce. And in fact, when she ran for county clerk a couple of years ago, she actually said in her campaign literature, I promise to follow the law to the letter.
Well, but she says she's following a different law now.
Oh, a different law. God's law. She's not shy about saying
God's law and the First Amendment and religious freedom laws. Now, wait a minute.
All right.
To quote Andy Hum. Now, wait a minute. Let's review this a little.
Okay.
So she says she has a First Amendment right to believe what she believes and to not be oppressed by the government for her religious belief.
Yes, and that was addressed by Judge Bunning's decision, who said, you can speak out against same-sex marriage all you like. But
you can believe whatever you want.
But in your official capacity, because otherwise we've been over this in the Indiana situation and the Religious Freedom Restoration, all these acts and everything. If people get to pick and choose the laws they're allowed to abide by based on their faith, all hell will break loose.
Well,
we'll end up like ISIS or something.
Well, I would suggest that all hell is breaking loose. let's look back at why the religious freedom laws were written in the first place. And they're about things like people in police departments or in prisons or in the military who wanted to wear a beard for religious reasons and were told they couldn't because that was against the rules. And this new law said, well, really, there's no good reason to stop them from doing that. It doesn't hurt anybody else. And so we're going to allow them the religious freedom to do that. The problem with Kim Davis and others like her is that she is twisting that on its head. She's not demanding some religious freedom for herself in her individual practices. She is asking for the freedom to impose her views on everybody else by denying their rights under the law. But here's where I think it gets really twisted. We now have in the Hobby Lobby case and in this new case in, where is it? Is it in New York? No, D.C., the U.S. District Court for D.C., judges saying that, in fact, companies have the right to make decisions for their employees based on either their religious convictions or, in this new case out of D.C., simply their moral precepts. Right. It doesn't even, to connect it only to religion is discriminatory and gives favor to religion.
Right, and then that's a case of a group called March for Life, which says it's a non-religious group, anti-abortion group, which wants the right not to fund an insurance program that covers birth control that they say causes abortion.
Employees don't want to have to pay for an insurance program that covers contraception they don't approve of. Well, I don't want to pay my taxes that go to support wars I don't like either.
Some people did that during the Vietnam War, didn't pay their taxes.
But this is exactly why we
and they went to jail.
This is exactly why we are inviting chaos and a complete mess of the entire system. So we would like to revert to a system where the laws actually control things.
Well, when we talk about the Rentboy.com case, we'll talk about laws that we don't like.
Well, that's true. But Kim Davis, in the middle of this, is saying, yes, she is saying I answer to God's law, but she's saying that the First Amendment and the Religious Freedom Act gives her the right to refuse to issue these marriage licenses.
That is the basis of her case, and she's been rejected by the federal judge.
Yep.
She's been rejected by the Sixth Circuit, who also wouldn't give her, wouldn't give her a stay.
Yep.
And the Supreme Court wouldn't put a stay on it either.
Right.
She's going to lose. They keep saying, you're going to lose. There's no point in giving you a stay. You're going to lose. We can't have this.
And she's being supported by Liberty Counsel, which is one of these right-wing legal organizations that drives a lot of this stuff that's against us, and specifically their leader, Matt Staver, who says, well, her appeals are not exhausted, so she can continue not to supply the licenses. Wrong. She has lost the stay that allowed her not to supply licenses. She can continue to appeal, but she must grant the licenses now.
No.
And there's going to be a hearing tomorrow as we're taping. We're taping on Wednesday. The hearing will be Thursday.
For contempt.
For contempt of court. The ACLU has brought a charge against her of contempt of court. Everyone now is on the edge of their seat, waiting to see, will Kim Davis go to jail? Will she lose her job? Will she get away with this? Will Kentucky change its laws? Matt Staver is suggesting, this really shocked me when I saw him on MSNBC say this week. He said, she just wants her name off the marriage license. She will file the license if it's just issued by the state of Kentucky. And I thought, what? This is where she's a hypocrite.
Yeah.
She will process the license as long as her name is not on it.
Well, because it's on an ungodly license. It's about a marriage that God doesn't approve of. But of course, God does not approve, her God, does not approve of her divorces and remarriages. Now, I realize that she became born again only about 4 years ago at the age of 44. But
when her mother-in-law died, right?
Well, yeah, her mother-in-law was a godly woman, yes, and then she went to church. And at her behest, she went to church, and then she found Jesus.
Yeah.
She owes her life to Jesus Christ. I'm quoting her, and she said, "Never never thought that I would be asked to violate a central teaching of Jesus Christ on marriage. Now, the only central...
In the last 4 years,
Now, wait
I
a
never
minute.
thought.
Where's the verse about no same-sex marriage in the Bible? You know, I mean, seriously, Jesus famously never said anything about homosexuality, ever. And
Yeah, but some of those other people supposedly
he did, however, condemn divorce, and it was unusual for a Jewish leader, which he was at the time, to say something like that, because there is divorce, and he said no more divorce. You can't put away your wife, and it was about Jesus's compassion for women who were just essentially cut off from and left to die, basically. And he said you can't do that. You got to support your wife and be with her for the rest of your life. She did not do that, but all right. So she's been born again. So now she's not going to get any more divorces, we assume. But
if, as Dr. Phil says, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
But, well, Woody and Sun Yi are still together. Who gave that a chance? Anyway, but the fact is, she is signing licenses for people who are divorced and are getting remarried expressly against the words in the gospel, not the epistles
that she claims to be
so
guided by.
that's where the hypocrisy and the hatred of gay people comes in, and which she won't own up to. Should we show them what happened when?
One second, I want to also mention a supporter of hers, a clerk in a neighboring county.
It's only fair to mention a supporter.
Casey Davis, who ironically is the clerk of Casey County, he is currently riding a bicycle across Kentucky to raise funds for Kim Davis. He says that God's law supersedes U.S. law, and that his job as the clerk of Casey County is, and I quote, to warn sinners they're going to hell. That's his clerk's job.
More about which later when we get to Northern Ireland and international news.
Oh, okay. You'll surprise me there.
Okay.
All right, but yeah, so there are these same-sex couples, male couples, female couples, who have been going to the clerk's office in Rowan County, Kentucky, applying for marriage licenses. That's how this whole thing came to a head. And they keep going. Every time her stay is denied, every time she loses a case, they go back to the clerk's office wanting a marriage license. And they talk about the humiliation of this and the degradation and the pain and the rejection. And
they have a lot of supporters outside, too.
Absolutely they do, as they should. So one of these couples, a male couple, went in there this week to again apply for a marriage license, and they got into a little confrontation with clerk Kim Davis, which was captured on video and is posted on YouTube, and which you can see part of right here.
The appeal stay has been denied.
Mm-hmm. Right. The injunction is the order that you're supposed to issue marriage licenses.
And we're not issuing marriage
The
licenses
Supreme
today.
Court denied your stay.
We are not issuing marriage licenses today. So
Based on what?
I would ask you all to
Why are you not
go ahead
issuing
and
marriage licenses today?
Because I'm not.
Under
Why?
whose authority are you not issuing
Under
licenses?
God's authority.
I don't
Did
believe
God
in your
tell you
God.
to do this? Did God
I
tell
don't
you
believe
to
in your
treat
God.
us?
I don't
like
believe in your
this?
I've
God.
asked you all to leave. You are interrupting my
You can call the
business.
police if you want us to leave. You can call the police. I pay your salary. I pay your salary. I pay you to discriminate against me right now. That's what I'm paying for. That's what I'm paying for. I'm paying for this memory with my partner that I love, that I've been with for 17 years. What's the longest you've been with someone, that you've been married to someone?
I'm asking you to leave.
I'm not leaving.
Okay, you all
I'm asking you
just
to
push
leave.
back
I'm not
away. You all are more
I'm
than
not
welcome to stay. Just
I
push
can't
back
help
away
that
from
the
the
president
counter.
No,
Just push back
we're
away
not
from the
leaving until
counter.
we have a license. We're not leaving
Then
until
you're
we
going to
have a
have a
license.
long day.
job.
Well,
Good
then
day.
call the police. When they come, I'll ask them to arrest you.
Do your job.
Call the police! Call the police! I will have them arrest you! You should be ashamed of yourself!
Well, I love the way the two Davids have gotten religion. I mean, that they've really got the fire of being discriminated against, and they're going to stand up for themselves, and it's quite wonderful to watch.
The heroism of the grassroots.
Yes, absolutely. Which is the whole story of the marriage movement, basically.
Yes, exactly.
You know, as my friend Ann Northrup has often pointed out.
I am just continually moved by that that genius and
Yes.
courage.
Now,
And let's not forget, these are not people who, and I applaud everyone, but these are not people who in the past, before the laws changed, went in trying to apply for marriage licenses and performing civil disobedience. These are people who are legally entitled to a marriage license, who are being denied by a government official.
Can I ask a question?
Why not?
Why? What are the sex discordant, the straight couples, doing about this?
They're angry. They filed suit too.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Because they can't get married in their own county.
Yeah.
Because of this
But you know,
crazy woman. You know, seriously, there was a recent thing about certain kinds of religious belief constitute mental illness. And, you know, if you take it to an extreme...
You and I may believe that, but do we really want to say it publicly?
No, I'm saying...
Yeah.
No, I'm saying this is from the you know, the American Psychiatric Association,
Yes.
looking at when people get certain kinds of obsessions like this, and I think that's what she's going through.
I like the psychological...
Obviously, Anne, 99.9999% of the clerks who share her beliefs are not doing this.
Yeah, absolutely,
That's my
because
point.
they're good public servants who understand that they took an oath to uphold the law and to perform their duties. And I would also submit that the vast majority of people who assert religious affiliation and beliefs are not acting like this either. These are outliers.
That's what I'm saying. Now, you mentioned that there
I like
might...
the psychological analysis of Donald Trump in the New York Times this week, however, that went back to his childhood at the opening of the Verrazzano Bridge, and the fact that the guy who had designed the bridge was not, he thought, paid enough attention to, and the language he used then was the same he's using now. Loser. You know, I'm never going to be treated like that. I am going to be, and that's why his name is on all his buildings, because the designer of the Verrazzano Narrows Bridge didn't get enough credit.
This is the bridge that links Brooklyn and Staten Island and lets Long Islanders go south easier. My family drove over it the first day, and my little brother Chris, he must have been
Maybe they were at that ceremony.
9 years old, and we weren't at the ceremony. We just drove over it the first day in a traffic jam, and he referred to it as the horizontal Narrows because that's what seemed more logical. All right. Now, we're not completely finished in Kentucky.
Okay.
After that happened, people started shouting at her, "Do your job, do your job." That's become the new meme with her.
Yeah.
And we have, by the way, we have a full picture of the two Davids, David Arnold and David Moore, if we could put that up on the screen there.
Yeah, let's get a look at their faces, not just the back of their heads.
Because put it up if you can. Oh, no, that's Oliver Sacks and his lover. He's dead. There they are.
Yes.
They're the two Davids. Yep. Because they talked to Kim Davis a couple of days before this and said, why are you doing this? And they said she got kind of emotional and recounted the story of Adam and Eve to us. Now, that's why I'm saying there's something a little wrong going on here.
Okay.
Anyway, the ACLU is suing on behalf of 4 couples. It's a mess.
Yes, can't wait to see how it plays out.
We don't know if
But there's not really a win-win in this down the road.
And there's not much other marriage news. Maybe we should do it. In Guam, same-sex marriage became law without the signature of Governor Eddie Calvo, but it's happening.
And in Mississippi, the couples who have sued to overturn the adoption ban, which is still in place even though marriage is legal, filed for immediate relief from that ban by preliminary injunction, waiting for a decision on that.
And one of the people they're suing is Governor Phil Bryant, who has a gay son, who he never seems to affirm.
There you go. All right, taking a little 90-degree turn to Rentboy.
Sure.
Okay. Last week's headline was that Rentboy.com, a website that paired male escorts with clients, had been busted by not only the federal government, Homeland Security, to be specific, which seemed outrageous to us and turned out to be outrageous to a lot of people, including the New York Times, which wrote a very strong editorial against this kind of behavior by the federal government. And Mayor de Blasio of New York is getting slammed for letting this happen under his watch. And so we are having a big demonstration tomorrow, which will be before you see this. But there are demonstrations also this weekend on Saturday in Los Angeles and San Francisco, midday. If you see this before then, you may be able to find them.
And what people should understand here. This is a service connecting male escorts with clients, but which has been going on for 18 years. They have a float in the Pride Parade where the mayor marches.
I would say it's been going on for thousands of years.
Oldest profession, second oldest profession, oldest profession.
Well, we're against sex trafficking. We're against exploitation and coercion of anybody. We're against any kind of abuse. But we're talking about people who are transacting this with full knowledge and consent at whatever age.
So, again, prior to this, a lot of mainstream groups came out for the decriminalization of consensual sex work.
UN agencies, Amnesty International,
ACLU, Human Rights Watch, the World Health Organization, because criminalizing it puts the sex workers and their clients in health jeopardy, safety jeopardy. You want to just drive everybody out into the street. And also, this is, look, Rentboy.com helps a lot of probably rich and middle class people connect to clients. I mean, there are people who do sex work in the street or just are transgender walking in the street are often getting arrested for this constantly. There have been 5,000 arrests for this in New York this year. They can arrest you in New York for, we call it walking while transgender, especially if you happen to be carrying more than like one condom.
Right.
You're considered, that's proof that you are a sex worker and you're a criminal, and it is filling the jails. And then and by the way, they also use these sex trafficking rules in what I would call perverse ways, where like two sex workers live together, and then they essentially get accused of trafficking each other. It's a total abuse of the thing. The sex trafficking is a very serious problem and needs to be stopped. But not consensual work like this.
Again, we are against anything that is harming people. We certainly believe in pursuing that and stopping it. But this is a situation where people are not harming people. They're performing a service that is needed and desired. And if, there's so many things that harm people that don't get prosecuted, whether it is the
Wall
banks,
Street.
yes, or any number of other things. And yet they're going after this because of some sense of morality. And that's why we put it in the same show as Kim Davis, because it is this overweening sense of, I have a moral compass and you don't, and I'm going to rule over you with my moral convictions.
I think there's some of that, and I think it's also just wanting to keep the business going with prisons and locking people up and finding something to lock people up for, so you can keep upstate economies going.
Keeping the police going.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving them something to do.
Giving them something to do, and it's an outrage.
Yeah,
it's just an outrage. But I'm really encouraged by all the different groups that have come out. All the Democratic clubs have come out for this. Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum has come out for this demonstration. The Police Reform Organizing Project, Gay USA has endorsed this demonstration, and many others.
Yeah.
So,
And the sex workers are organizing. They're in support groups and or lobbying organizations, and they're organizing politically to try to do something about this.
They are being put in grave jeopardy.
They are.
By this.
They are.
And we're about.
And they're speaking up, and that's good.
And we're about harm reduction, and that we did it with AIDS. Look, shooting up is illegal with illicit drugs, right? But it took decades in some cases to get, and at least in this country, not in Britain, but to get our government to agree, oh yeah, it might be a good idea if we gave out clean needles so people don't get AIDS.
And when you bring people to a site for something like that, you can also bring them into treatment. That's a lot of people got into treatment by going for clean needles to a harm reduction site.
Right. And by the way, look, our view is not universal. There was an op-ed in the Times by a woman who became a prostitute when she was like 15, and she wants it totally banned everywhere. And she wants all the Johns arrested as the way to stop this. Well,
Look, again, we're against abuse. We're
Yes.
against trafficking. 15 sounds awfully young to be starting that. So
Of course.
I'm sure
Of
from her
course.
point of view, it was an abusive situation.
Of course it was. It was. Of course it was. I mean, but don't extrapolate your own experience for what everybody else wants to do. And she says, oh, well, the people who are actually empowered are, just very rich sex workers who, and if it's a very small group. Anyway.
Whatever.
All right.
Should we move on to the Pope?
Well, why not? I mean, the big news this week, every single big news show did a thing about how the Pope and abortion, how he's going to forgive women who have had abortions can be forgiven. Isn't it wonderful? He's liberalizing. Of course, the Vatican spokesperson says, well, we're not changing any doctrine on abortion. I didn't even realize it. You can't be forgiven by abortion except by a bishop, apparently. It is such a grave sin. So now they're going to wait a minute, it's a one-time only offer, folks. It's a holy year. It's a year of mercy. I'm not satirizing this. This is what they're saying. For this year only, priests, regular old priests, can forgive you having an abortion. But you must be sincere about the awful thing that you did. So nothing has been liberalized here at all.
The church understands that its parishioners are in an entirely different county than they are, that they do have abortions, that they do use contraception, that they do divorce.
Some of them are homosexuals.
Some of them are homosexual, and some of them are good people.
Who am I to judge?
But they can't, if they reject everybody, they've got no one left in the pews. So they have this system of absolution, this get out of jail free card, because they want people back in the churches.
Yes, but you have to say it's wrong. So, I mean, gay people are not saying that what we are is wrong anymore.
I'm not supporting this. I'm explaining why they would do that.
I mean, the Pope is, for instance, is coming to New York. He's coming to Philadelphia, and they're having this World Meeting of Families. Well, the only people being allowed to speak on the gay issue is a gay guy who says he is celibate, whatever that means. I mean, I'm celibate. That means that you're not married. Okay, I'm not married.
You know what they mean in general terms.
All right.
Not sexually active.
I didn't talk to the guy. And his mother is also speaking. But all the gay people who affirm themselves and affirm their sexuality are not being allowed to speak or being kept out of the hall, are going to have to do things outside.
Well, here's the question.
Although they can come as individuals, as long as they don't cause any trouble.
He's going to be around for a few days in this country, in Philadelphia, and New York, and D.C., and maybe a couple of other places.
We are dreading this.
We are dreading it. And do we have to get active and do something against him, or do we stick our heads in the sand or go in our little closets and just wait until he goes away and resume our normal lives?
Well, it is just depressing to me to watch that spectacle. I know he gives a lot of people good feelings, and they think he's a liberal, and it just gives them a warm feeling. I think it's idolatry. I mean, Protestants used to really be down on Catholics because they worshipped the Pope, not Jesus.
Talk to my parents.
Not God. And it is sort of dispiriting to see this cult of personality, big posters, not of Jesus, but of the Pope on the sides of buildings and all over the place, and everybody's going to get some kind of a feeling. But as I said, it's like going to see Santa Claus. It's not like they're listening to him. I wish they would listen to him about what he says about climate change, about what he says about wealth inequality, and those kinds of things. But they don't listen to him on those things.
But he did something nice with the little gay books.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, you may remember that the mayor of Venice wanted to ban 49 LGBT-themed books from the school curricula of elementary schools in Venice. Huge outcry. The list was cut back to 2, but the mayor is standing firm about hating anything gay and
no pride parades either.
No pride parade, but Pope Francis was sent a collection of some of these books by the author. And he wrote her back a note. One of them was Piccolo Uvo, Little Egg. Little Egg discovers diverse families, goes around. And I don't know why an egg would go around, but Little Egg goes around and discovers diverse families, including lesbian rabbits. Strange. But the Pope wrote a letter to the author praising her spread of genuine human and Christian values. So everybody goes, oh, the Pope is being nice to the gay books.
Well, again, I'm waiting for substance. Well, we could talk about the Catholic school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we could talk about
you got one in Portland. I got one in Springfield,
yes,
Illinois.
Yes, indeed. So St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon. I mean, we talked about this months ago. It's an all-girls Catholic school. They ended a contract with a teacher who came out of the closet, and now they have voted unanimously not to discriminate against LGBT staff and students and parents, including those who are married, staff who get married, or parents who are married, to each other.
Same-sex partners.
Same-sex partners. And it's a first for a Catholic high school. Now, the bishop is saying, well, we don't have jurisdiction over them, but we'd like to talk to them. And now the archdiocese there is saying,
is that an imitation of the bishop?
They may lose their Catholic affiliation, because the litmus test for being a good Catholic is you have to persecute gay people, or you are not a good Catholic.
Well, then we have a very good Catholic in Springfield, Illinois, where the bishop has put out a set of rules for parents who want to send their kids to the Catholic school.
Has to be read to be believed.
Must agree to have their kids taught the rules of Catholicism, including no homosexuality and no divorce. Must talk to the pastor about conforming to those rules if your family does not at the moment. Your family must conform to those rules before you can send the kid to the school. You must attend Mass weekly.
Even if you are not Catholic, which 10% of them are not.
You must tithe 8% of your earnings to the parish.
It's always about the money.
Always.
Once we called for people to stop donating to the Catholic Church, and they got, this is the Archdiocese of New York. They actually responded to that. They said, that's dirty pool.
Dirty pool.
Well, haven't you noticed the donations going down a bit over the years with your
Yes, that's why they're offering absolution for all these things, because they want them to donate again.
Not the Bishop of Springfield.
Well, no, he has all these rules, and we just want to point out that he was previously in the news when he held an exorcism of the state legislature when they legalized same-sex marriage.
When I was growing up, I don't know if it's still the rule, if a Protestant or a Jew wanted to marry a Catholic, they had to agree to raise the children in the Catholic faith. I don't know if that's still the case, but that used to be the
If you want the church to perform the wedding, you have to do that, I think.
Now, in Louisville, Kentucky, going back to Kentucky for a second, the Boy Scouts there, a Catholic parish there wants a gay scoutmaster. They want to let this guy, who's a member of their parish, for a long time, but the bishop says no, can't do it.
These bishops, what's wrong with these bishops?
They're the ones who, that Francis could be doing something about, and is not.
Yet, anyway.
He's just writing love notes to people who write lesbian egg books.
No, it's the rabbits who are lesbians. Rabbits. By the way, the Movement Advancement Project, which is an LGBT research and think tank, has put out a new report on the impact of religious freedom restoration laws. And you can go online and find this at lgbtmap.org, lgbtmap.org, the report on the religious freedom restoration laws and their impact around the country. It's interesting reading.
Okay, let's talk about the passing of Dr. Oliver Sacks, the neurologist, the author of Awakenings, and the man who mistook his wife for a hat. He died at the age of 82. Now,
on the left here.
Yes, and that's his partner of 6 years is a guy named Billy Hayes, who's a writer, but not the Billy Hayes who wrote Midnight Express. You think he'd want a different name. But anyway, Oliver Sacks only came out in a memoir this year. He said he discovered his gayness as a teen and kind of in a conversation with had a conversation with his father about it, who said, well, what are you, I see you're not interested in girls. Are you interested in boys? He says, I think so. And he said, don't tell Mom, Oliver said. He did tell Mom, and Mom said, you're an abomination. They were living in England. They were Orthodox Jews, and so he said
That shut him down.
He said he became celibate for 35 years. And then he was sort of just regarded by the press, because he was a very famous person, as sort of eccentric and things. They never really probed too much into this, but he is survived by his partner. He was famous for listening to his patients and imagining what life was like for them. So that was what he was known for.
Okay. Interesting story out of Atlanta, Georgia. Someone has discovered that the police department is using training materials that call consensual sodomy illegal, unnatural, and comparable to bestiality.
Well, these written by the former fire commissioner?
You'd think. So this became a public issue. The local news covered it. And the police department has promised that they will review these materials and consider updating them to conform with the law.
Sodomy law is still on the books there?
The sodomy laws are on the books in a lot of places, but that doesn't mean they're enforceable. They're only enforceable as forcible sodomy or non-consensual. But Lawrence v. Texas was supposed to clear this up about 12 years ago.
Well, staying in Georgia then for a second, a trans inmate there, Ashley Diamond, 37, who sued for hormone treatment and protection from prison rape.
8 sexual assaults in prison.
So she was a problem because she was suing and getting a lot of attention. The Times did a big profile of her. So they decided to parole her after she served only a third of her sentence for burglary.
Yeah.
But she eventually did. She was barred from wearing a wig. She only just got hormones. She was housed in men's prisons. And now she says she's relieved, not elated. And her first stop was at a wig shop to get a wig like Beyonce, black and blonde.
Some sad stories of violence in Colorado Springs, Colorado. A murder between guys who hooked up from Grindr. One man killed the other, claiming he'd been aggressive, although his story did not sound like he was actually under any real threat.
Sean Crescentini, 30, was stabbed to death by Fernando Rosales, 23. This is, again, whenever these happen, these hookup crimes, we remind you to go to avp.org. avp.org, that's the Anti-Violence Project, and read up on safety tips. There are ways to protect yourself from these kinds of crimes. Sometimes.
Good news from Indiana, where the Indianapolis Star newspaper has launched a very assertive and ambitious campaign to support a state non-discrimination law for sexual orientation and gender identity. Yep. They intend to enlist businesses in this campaign, hold public forums. Now, this is the business side of the paper. It's not supposedly going to affect their reporting, but their editorials will support this and their business practices. And that's a great progressive move. Which they're, of course, under attack
Another murder to report in Middleton, Rhode Island. This one was a, what do they call it, intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
Rachel Kilroy, 34, strangled to death by her girlfriend Melissa Sue Ann Castle on August 25th. Apparently the second in Rhode Island in a week of intimate partner violence. I don't think the other one was gay. Both of these women had criminal records, not that it makes any difference, but it was a bad scene.
Yeah. Interesting story. A lot of the news this week has been about the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. And 10 years ago, one of the people brought to prominence in the midst of that was a young boy named Charles Evans, 9 years old. He was interviewed, and he was so bright and lively that he was featured a lot on the news reports, talking quite poignantly about his experience of the hurricane. And he even went to the Emmys and was on the red carpet and was, trotted around as this example of what happened. Well, people have been doing update stories on people affected by the hurricane, and Charles Evans, it turns out, is transgender and is now Ariana and is just as bright and lively and appealing, and is featured now in the news stories this year about the anniversary.
A less happy transgender story from Pierre, South Dakota. A bill there would require visual inspection to determine gender of high school athletes. Now, the High School Athletic Association...
Meaning you have to take your clothes off and show your genitals.
It's sort of a little bit like what they do at the papal conclave, where they reach under the Pope's cassock and make sure that he is a man. That is an old...
Because of what, Pope Joan?
It's just part of the ceremony.
Yes.
I'm kid you not. I know you think I'm anti-Catholic, and I am against a lot of what the religion teaches. But anyway, the High School Athletic Association there last year allowed self-identification on gender, but Representative Roger Hunt says, this is South Dakota. We haven't adopted the East Coast culture. We haven't adopted the West Coast culture. We maintain our culture, which is hateful.
Oh, more about that later.
Well, we don't know that that's going to go through.
Yeah, it's just one proposal by one legislator. Very happy to see on the front page of the New York Times a huge picture and story profiling Judge Phyllis Fry, longtime transgender activist in Houston.
This is a big story. This is like a 3-page story inside. Yeah. A fascinating story.
Well, Phyllis is a terrific activist, and the fact that
speaker, have her down.
The fact that she ended up as a judge on the bench in Houston, appointed, of course, by Anise Parker, who she had worked with for years on issues, is just fabulous.
When she started coming out in 1976, she actually went door to door in her neighborhood and distributed letters advising the community that she was known as Phil and she's going to be Phyllis. In response, her house was egged, her tires slashed, and her driveway spray painted with obscenities. And she went through a lot of this. She kept losing jobs when they discovered from the government in many cases. Mm-hmm. But of course, she became pals with Anise Parker, who is the lesbian mayor of Houston, and she's become a leader. And she says she's kind of disappointed in Caitlyn Jenner for not, coming out sooner at all. And but that she's,
Look, what is clear is that people who have great privilege are the most scared about assuming minority status.
Yes.
And Caitlyn Jenner, as Bruce Jenner, was at the top of the world. And I believe that Caitlyn is completely honest and sincere about the struggle she has gone through for 40 or 50 years over her gender identity. And I have all sorts of problems with her political views or her ignorance or whatever.
How's the show going?
It's a mixture. It is stunning to see it. She seems to be forthright about her curiosity and her values and her interests, but she's a mess in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Well, what would you expect?
All right.
But let's move it along because we won't get to our movie clips.
Updating you on the Terry Bean case, the big gay activist and Democratic donor out there in Eugene, Oregon. Charges are going to be dismissed against him for having underage sex with his boyfriend and this 15-year-old because the boy, who's now 17, is on the run from detectives, has attempted suicide. He's traumatized over having to appear at the trial.
That's a messy situation.
Yes.
Back to Houston, the campaign around the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance is starting. Our side has put out its first radio ad, which is a pastor speaking about the myth of any problem with transgender people using the bathroom of their choice. Okay. Interesting. And Pride at Work, which is an LGBT organization representing 20 unions, has publicly condemned the Human Rights Campaign for their Corporate Equality Index, pointing out things like they're only evaluating the stated policies, not how they actually treat their workers. For instance, Walmart has a non-discrimination policy, but they're just horrendous to their workers, and HRC is not evaluating that and is giving them high marks as a good place to work just because they have a stated policy.
Well, I mean, all of Eastern Europe has non-discrimination laws against gay people because they had to adopt it to get in the EU, and they still treat gay people like crap.
Right.
Uganda, the parliament there is looking to take up a bill to recriminalize LGBT rights work. This is called the NGO bill. NGOs could be banned for any reason.
Non-governmental organizations.
Yes. The elections are coming up there in 2016. It is not a standalone gay bill, and it has more of a chance of passing.
Well, they passed an anti-gay bill that got struck down by their constitutional court. This is a bill that says all NGOs have to register with the government and have to be subject to government oversight. And that is specifically meant to destroy those that help LGBT people.
Oh, by the way, in Jamaica, 3 gay men were arrested for robbery, and the judge said to them, "You are not here because of your lifestyle. You are an embarrassment to people who want an alternative lifestyle." I had to get that in there. Oh, the Northern Ireland thing. A Baptist pastor there, Mark Bradfield, he's offering to cure gays at the Pride Parade in Derry and will help anyone who wants out. Well, we want to be out. We don't. And he says anyone who doesn't take advantage of this is going to hell.
AIDS news.
Yes.
ACT UP and TAG, the treatment action group, held a big town hall this week on the closing of the Chelsea health clinic that served the community. The interesting...
Our community.
Yeah, the interesting information there was that the city has really cut funding for HIV testing and STD funding, and therefore the testing is down drastically in the last few years.
The whole idea of End AIDS 2020, by 2020, is get everybody tested, step it up, get everybody in treatment. What is going on?
Again, policies versus practices. Right. The city was invited to send representatives, did not, but public advocate Letitia James was there getting filled in on all of this.
Okay.
Entertainment news.
Well,
I want to recommend a documentary that's opening in New York at the IFC Center next Wednesday, September 9th, and probably around the country. It's gotten a lot of film festival awards. It's called Welcome to Leith, and it takes place in the sort of barren fields of North Dakota near the oil fields. Leith is a town of 24 people. Outsiders came in and started buying up some property, and they thought, oh, these are people who are working in the oil fields. They want a place. No, they're white supremacists. And there ensued an enormous fight over the white supremacists being in town, who are unbelievably open about their hatred of Jews, gays, everybody else. But the film sort of flips in the middle about what about their First Amendment rights, because the townspeople go and burn down their house. So it's a fascinating film.
What happened to the Mormons in
We have a little
Illinois.
film clip from the movie Welcome to Leith, something you might want to take a look at.
When he first got here, he turned around and asked me, did we have any land for sale?
I had no idea what his ultimate plan was.
Well-known white supremacist Craig Cobb plans to turn Leith into a white nationalist community.
Here we can gather together and become a simple majority by legal electoral rights.
We live here, we breathe here, our kids grow up here.
All right. No Nazis! No KKK!
That's white Americans hating on us, who are also white Americans.
This is what we sleep with every night.
They simply will not allow us to keep one another's company freely and openly.
Leave me alone. You shall be, I will hit you.
He posts my name, my address. We gotta go.
White power!
The Nazi people, I think they're all snakes. You gotta cut their head off to get rid of them.
If we weren't getting harassed so much, we wouldn't have to do this.
Tom, they got me both have rifles. You're running us out of this damn town.
Yikes. Okay.
It's,
yeah.
It's a really interesting movie and more complex than you might think to begin with. So welcome to Leith, Leith, in New York next week.
It does look very compelling.
Yeah.
I had a lesbian friend who once said gays should take over the Conservative Party, and that way we could run something.
I said that.
Well, I mean, but that happens. All right.
I wasn't promoting armed insurrection,
We
however.
also weren't promoting conservatism. We just wanted to run something.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus says she identifies as pansexual, not bisexual, as the media has reported. The Leslie Lohman Gallery in New York, which is the only LGBT museum in the country, I believe, till October 25th, has a thing called On the Domestic Front, Scenes of Everyday Queer Life, curated by James Saslow. It answers the question, what do gay people do when they're not having sex? That's at 26 Worcester Street.
Opening in New York this week on Friday, the movie A Sinner in Mecca. Parvez Sharma, gay Muslim, goes to Mecca on a Hajj, a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
We are hoping to have him next week here to talk about it, but meanwhile, let's show you the clip from A Sinner in Mecca. New York this week, LA next week, and then beyond.
It's against our religion. It's not acceptable at all to be a homosexual.
Parvez Sharma spent 5.5 years documenting the lives of gay and lesbian Muslims.
Right now, there's a battle for the soul of Islam.
I was a marked man, a Muslim who was not only openly gay, but had also been publicly labeled an infidel.
Do you take Daniel to be your lawfully wedded husband?
Yes, I do. I expect to see the bloody sheet in the morning.
My mother never forgave me for being gay. I am now faced with a crisis of faith. I need to prove that I can be a good Muslim and be gay.
In 3 days, I leave for Saudi Arabia.
The beheading of an Indonesian maid in Saudi Arabia.
I'm going there to complete my Hajj pilgrimage, just like millions of Muslims before me have.
Saudi Arabia is one of the most repressive countries in the world.
The only difference with my Hajj is that I'm going there as an openly gay man, an act that is punishable by death.
I've been dreading this for a rather long time.
Let's go, hope we come out alive.
Brothers and sisters, it is not a minor moment, it is an extremely significant moment.
The Saudis have cordoned off every area that might be too dangerous to film.
For Muslims like me, Islam has been a faith of fear. Do I belong in this religion that condemns me?
في حج ممنوع التصوير في المملكة.
No. Oh my God.
I found it fascinating. It's filled with so many contradictions. So we hope to talk to Parvez about that next week. You mentioned Miley Cyrus and her pansexuality. Did you? I know the answer to this without even knowing. Did you watch the MTV Video Music Awards?
No.
I did.
Well,
I thought they were
to.
hilarious.
I'm happy to have you represent us.
They were the gayest VMAs ever. They were just full. Taylor Swift and all her model girlfriends, Miley Cyrus and her pansexuality. It was wild.
So the gay moment is not over. They're not tired of us yet.
I have always found that just when I get sick of something is when it takes off. But I thought Miley Cyrus was terrific as the host, and I thought they were very entertaining, and I applaud her. She did this last big number with half the cast from RuPaul's Drag Race. It was very colorful and very amusing.
But Vicious is back for a second season on PBS. And
you can see rebroadcasts of the MTV VMAs on MTV. They run it about twice a day.
Maybe I will. My friend Ann says it's a wonderful show.
Particularly Ann.
Not Vicious. Vicious is back. It really is as bad as ever.
Horrible.
Some of you are fond of it, so if anybody gets any pleasure out of anything in life, I'm happy for you. But these are three of my favorite actors, Derek Jacobi, Ian McKellen, and Francis Latour, and they are just walking through it. And it's unbelievable. I mean, I think it's hurting their reputations because they are surpassing stage actors. They're just.
What evidence do you have that it is hurting their reputation?
Well, it shows bad judgment, I think.
Well, to you and to me, but has anyone else said that?
Well, we're certainly entitled to say this. It is a show, a gay-themed show.
No, that's not my question. We're entitled to say it. I'm asking for your evidence that it's hurting their reputations.
If it's hurting with me, and other people I've talked to about the show. What else can I say?
Okay. That's enough.
It's not getting. Maybe it's going to get them more contracts to do more bad shows. But why do people want to do bad shows?
I look at it and I think I've gone back to the 1950s.
Yeah.
But speaking of going back, I am looking forward to Viola Davis playing Barbara Jordan in a script by Tony Kushner.
Oh, now Tony would not deal with Abe Lincoln's homosexuality. Does he deal with Barbara Jordan's lesbianism?
You have raised a horrible possibility. It never occurred to me that he could do this without raising her lesbianism in this script.
Well, she had a partner, she had a woman partner.
Absolutely. So I assume that will be in there, but what do I know?
Well, it's only going to deal with her early life.
And are you watching Masters of Sex on Showtime, Masters and Johnson?
I never did because I don't like them. Masters and Johnson were very anti-gay.
Yeah, they were. I agree. I kept them off the CBS Morning News for that.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you.
They were going to come on with their book about how they could change gay people, and I said, over my dead body.
Well, that kind of talk really hurt their reputations.
Yes, it did.
And not just with us.
But anyway, so in last week's episode, Anna Lee Ashford, who plays their secretary receptionist, who's terrific.
Yeah.
So it turns out she now has, Sarah Silverman is her lover. See, you're not watching.
I know I don't watch it because I don't like them.
And they want to have a baby. So they're going through all these contortions to have, pretend they're not a couple and blah, blah, blah. So all this finally comes out. And Anna Lee Ashford is talking to Michael Sheen as Masters. And he's throwing some condescending nonsense at her. And she says, "Hey, I'm a lesbian, not a moron."
Well, that's nice. But does it portray?
It's my new favorite
Does
sentence.
it portray them as the bigots that they were?
Not yet. No.
See, when their star was falling, Masters and Johnson, they got a lot of things out there, which is great, and all that kind of stuff about sex. But when they were starting to be ignored, they decided, well, we're going to talk about how we can change homosexuality, which was a lie, and they were very respected researchers, so it hurt us a lot.
It did, but they also got shot down on the CBS Morning News. Anyway, here's something to look forward to and maybe go to. On October 5th, the benefit reading of Gross Indecency, The Trials of Oscar Wilde, which has been censored in Moscow, starring Sally Field, Michael C. Hall, David Hyde Pierce, Judith Light, Tony Kushner, and Jonathan Groff.
Well, we can talk to Tony whether or not he's going to deal with Barbara Jordan's lesbianism.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye.